Well, hello and welcome to the EDC Exports Zoom presentation. We hope the information we provide today will be useful for local businesses hoping to export their products and services. Ellie He is an SBDC business advisor from Seattle, now in Bellevue, who specializes in exports. Her areas of specialization include international business development, export compliance, and export financing. She helps businesses across Western Washington grow internationally. As a Washington SBDC International Trade Business Advisor, she collaborates with a number of other advisors that are both local, state, regional, and federal to provide export assistance, providing Washington state companies with tools and resources to help them figure out this exporting process. Ellie's also a global business professional with the National Association of Small Business Trade Educators. And SharonAnn Hamilton is also here with us today, who's the local SBDC representative that's in our Jefferson County office 2 days a week here at the EDC. So welcome, Ellie, and welcome, SharonAnn. We were going to go around the room, but since we've got sort of light attendance today, Pete, would you be willing to just tell us what types of things you export and like what your interest is in exporting?
Sure. Well, over the years, we've done most of our stuff is kind of marine or architectural related, or I guess in the different market there. Most of ours is very specialty, and so most of the clients that we've had have been not container loads, but basically small independent purchases that are being shipped either FedEx, HDL, or DHL, you know, any of the foreign carriers. We've had several logistic companies, one out of Seattle that's done some of the bigger shipments for us. So those would be, you know, over a 1,000-pound, you know, packages that we put together. We've been fortunate enough. We've sent stuff to Tasmania, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, in this sector, and then over to Europe, Spain, Italy, Germany, Norway, England, all of those stuff. And it's been interesting trying to build into that because there is tariffs for our product going that way, which are sometimes hard to deal with. Others are trying to find that next step, which is really somebody to retail your product in that environment versus a direct purchase from a, you know, manufacturer or a boat builder or somebody who has a home they're decorating, you know. So I think that's the next step for us, is how to find that connection, somebody that represents the product on the other side that can help build the demand so you can, I guess, increase the quantities.
Yeah.
And then maybe build some sustainability in the reliability that product is going to continue to sell there as well.
Mm-hmm. I'd be interested for other people in the county to understand like the variety of businesses that can consider exporting. For instance, I was involved with a company that started to export a service to Canada, and I thought that was interesting. Mostly in the past, I thought about it as products only, but it could be services, and maybe what size a company needs to be to start to begin to think about that. So with no further ado, I'd like to pass the ball to Sharon.
Thanks. Well, I was just thinking about a story. I was very surprised. Once upon a time, we had a business in the mountains of East San Diego. This has to do with exporting. So I just, you know, your business is never too small to begin thinking about exporting. I ran into a lady who made these most beautiful tie-dye clothing, and it's a hippie thing, but somehow she had a connection with someone in Japan, and she was selling box loads of tie-dye t-shirts and all kinds of clothing. Every single month she shipped out to Japan. And I was so surprised because she was in a town, Hakumba, smaller than, I mean, I don't even think they had 50 people in the town. So it's not a question of the size or where you are, or even if you're rural or urban, exporting is always a good additional income stream. So in case you don't know, SBDC, Small Business Development Center, is a national organization. We started with the Small Business Act in 1980, and we have key sponsors or contributors to our coffers. SBA, Small Business Administration, Washington State University, and other local stakeholders, which are like the economic development centers like Cindy's organization, all get together and sponsor us to be out into the world to help small businesses grow. That's our only purpose, help small businesses grow. Next slide. There are something like right now over 40 people. What I love about this picture is because, well, you just see these people, right? They look like you and I, everybody, but they all have a diversity of backgrounds that is incredible. This is a human library. We can at any point in time knock on the door through our intranet service and ask a question if we don't know the answer, and there's someone here who has experience and knowledge and resources. It's a tremendous advantage to anyone who's working with an advisor. Next slide. So I'm out of Port Angeles and Port Townsend, and Ellie, of course, is out of now Bellevue. Next slide. We offer business advising services, market intelligence, and training courses, of course, referrals to other resources, and we have a treasure trove of free resources in the community. I invite you to knock on the door, sit down and have a chat. Next slide. Are you ready to sell more?
Ready.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, SharonAnn, for the introduction. So now let's dive in a little to selling in foreign markets. I plan to, first we discuss a little about the benefit of exporting. I think SharonAnn mentioned part of it. And then we will look at what are the typical challenges for small businesses. And then I will walk you through how SBDC, International Trade Advisor, can help you walk through that process. We believe that exporting is a very powerful growth opportunity for many reasons. And here is not an exclusive list. So first reason, it's a great opportunity to increase sales and profits. The US population, a little over 300 million, account for less than 5% of the world's population. So think about it, 95% of the world's consumers live outside of the United States. That's tremendous amount of opportunity outside of the border. And second reason, it's a great way to diversify your revenue stream. So you are not so dependent on the US market. When there is a recession in the US market, when there is a natural disaster, when the market becomes too crowded, too saturated in the US, if you are diversified, you are more likely to survive. And exporting can be a great way of problem solving. If your product is seasonal, say beer, you sell very well in the summer here, and when it's winter, sales slow down. But if you sell to countries like Australia, New Zealand, or some countries in Africa, it's the summertime over there when it's winter here. And also for some companies, when you have excess products, and again, the market here is saturated, it's too competitive, but in some other countries, there is a demand of the product. The next reason is that we find that most exporters, in the process of getting in touch with their foreign partners, consumers, and competitors, they gain great insight in the product and the competition. That information turns around to help them improve the product and improve their domestic competitiveness. And in general, employees view companies that sell internationally as more attractive employers. It looks good for their resume, and it's better for their career advancement, and it's more interesting. So that it helps with employee satisfaction and retention. And the last but not least, many small businesses we work with, they just enjoy the process. You get to talk to partners, competitors in the same industry, but in a different culture, maybe on a different planet, a different continent, not planet yet. And maybe involve some international travels. So the whole process can be very enjoyable. With all that good reason, positive aspect of exporting, there is a very small portion of small businesses export. So I used to have people guess what's the number. Let's give the participants here today a test. What percentage of small businesses, U.S. small businesses export? If you can just say a number or type a number.
I was going to say probably that 1% or less.
Pete, that it's amazing. You are an exporter and you know the answer. That's exactly right. Less than 1%. And I see 3%, I see 5%, a little higher number. During another webinar, when I asked this question, there are people guessed 70%, 50%, 60%. Yeah, but the answer is less than 1%. Why? Because exporting is challenging. Here are some common challenges that we hear from small businesses. I'm too small to compete with big companies. Exporting is too complicated. It's too risky. I may lose money and I may go to jail. And it's too expensive to develop and realize the export sale, and I can't afford it. So these concerns are all real and true. That's where the SBDC International Trade Team come in, and we want to help small businesses overcome some of these challenges. So at SBDC, we use a tool we call Export Success Roadmap to work with small business owners. So no matter it's starting from the left, it can be a small business new to export, never sold to customers in foreign country. Or it can be an exporter new to market. Like Pete, if you want to expand in some markets from a direct to consumer retail sale to selling to an importer, a distributor that help you sell in that market. And then the first step, that's the first column, we would do is assess the export readiness. The second step, the second column, is to develop an export plan. After these two steps, the small business is ready to export. And the next step is to implement the export plan. And lastly, to strengthen the market position. So we will take a closer look at the first one, assess the export readiness. We have 4 blocks here. We'll take a closer look. So typically we would engage in a discussion with small business owner on these 4 areas. The first one, product knowledge. Typically, we find that small business owners that have a very intimate, close knowledge about their product and about the industry, that is important. And secondly, the management commitment. Export sales typically takes a long lead time, and there can be overwhelming amount of information you need to gather to learn in the process. And ideally, we say for most companies, at least prepare to have a half FTE, full-time employee time to engage in this export sales. And the third area to look at is production capability. because in most export sales, the sales takes a long lead time, but once it comes in, it can be a big order. Do you have the production capability to fill that order? And lastly is the business's financial capability. There will be some upfront financial investment involved in developing the export in business development activities. And also sometimes when filling the order, you will need some financial capability in order to do that. So for this readiness assessment, we also have a tool on our website. And I have the web link over there. It's on our website under international trade. And you don't have to be an SBDC client to use the tool. Just go to our website and you can click on the link and you can start filling out the information, and you will receive the result in email. So I see one hand up. Noshad, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Maybe I did not understand this. Is this SBDC helping only for the physical products, or what about intellectual properties or knowledge services that can be exported to other countries?
Knowledge and intellectual. So you are talking about maybe you have a IP, a patent, and licensing it to businesses in another country?
Yeah, that's part of it, yes.
We can provide the information, but SBDC advisors are not lawyers. So we won't be able to directly help you, say, register your IP in another country. And by the way, IP is territorial. So your trademark, your patent in the US, they're protected in the US, but they are not protected in foreign markets. So you will need to register those in the markets that you plan to enter. So we can certainly discuss and provide the resources.
Oh, okay, thank you. But follow-up questions, what if for the regular product, what if the buyers in other markets reverse engineer the product? Can you protect us?
SBDC doesn't have means to protect small businesses from counterfeiting, but there are ways. For example, registering your IP and also registering with the CBP, which is stands for Customs and Border Protection. So yeah, there are ways to get protected, and it may involve fees. It actually obviously involves fees, some costs. So that's part of the export costs. Again, we have access to the information, and when we do one-on-one business advising with small businesses, we frequently provide information and suggestion on steps you can take to protect your IP.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so after looking at the first step, the export readiness, next we will work with small business owners on developing an export plan. Here is an area we frequently get pushback because entrepreneurs, they are type A personality, they want to just get things done and not to put things on paper. But developing an export plan is necessary because there are 3 reasons for small businesses to develop an export plan. First, it serves as a blueprint for the business owner. So what's your plan, and what are some research you need to do in terms of the regulatory requirement, compliance, and the market selection? Do your research and put it on paper so you have the big picture and the plan. Secondly, it's a great way to communicate your idea and your vision and your plan with other people, including your employees and other organizations that you may seeking help from. The third reason is that we mentioned there are financial capability is important in exporting, and it's likely sometime down the road you may need financing. You may have financing needs, and when that comes up, you will need to provide an export plan in order to get that access to capital. So we want dive deep into each component of the export plan, but I want to highlight the last segment of the export plan, which is export compliance. So I just want to remind small businesses, no matter what's your product, even if it's food product, it's not anything related to military or to weapon, export compliance is still relevant. So in the US, there are 42 government agencies involved in export control. And the 3 I've listed here are the ones that's most frequently are relevant to most small businesses. And we frequently receive questions from small businesses, do I need an export license in order to export? And the question is, it depends on 4 factors. The item, that is your product, destination, the country the product is being sold to, and user, that includes the buyer and the person the buyer is planning to sell to, and end use, how the product is going to be used. So export license can be required for any of these reasons. So we want to remind small businesses, this is an area that's confusing, but it's an area that's every small business need to consider when you export, and it's serious. If there is a violation, the penalty can involve jail time or fine or both. And but there are very simple process, a couple of simple steps you can take to make sure you are in compliance. So please do speak with the SBDC advisor about this area, export compliance. So next, we want to discuss the characteristics of a good candidate for export growth. This is not an absolutely must-have, but it's just from our work, we have summarized the characteristics of a good candidate. First, there are opportunities for businesses in a variety of industries. So there's not much limit here. We have seen more businesses in the manufacturing and the value-added ag industry. These 2 are where we see most exporters, but there are plenty of opportunities in other industries as well. Secondly, typically established businesses will find more success in exporting. So the business owner already know how to run a business, and they already have deep knowledge about the product and the industry. So with that foundation, then the business is more likely to be successful in exporting. The next characteristic is the business is ready to grow and willing and able to commit. Here it means commit time and commit to continue to learn information related to exporting. And lastly, the business does not rely on export revenue just to survive. This is because export sales, it typically takes longer lead time and requires upfront business development investment. So if the business is about to go bankrupt and want to score a big sale from exporting, it typically doesn't work out well. Lastly, I want to share some additional information that may be of interest to small business owners. First, what are some programs for exporters to provide them with access to capital? There are more programs, and here I want to list 3 that's most frequently used. The first one is that the SBA has export loan program to provide financing options. Secondly, is a STEP grant. This is a grant from the federal government, SBA, and here in Washington State is administered by the Washington State Department of Commerce. This program help small businesses with reimburse some business development activities in order to develop export business. For example, attending a trade show or registering your IP in a foreign market, or translating your marketing material into a foreign language, or hire a vendor to update your website so it's more user-friendly to international buyers. For example, shipping samples to potential buyers overseas. So this type of business development activity can potentially get reimbursed through the STEP grant. The third program is the WUSADA's Fund Match Program. WUSADA stands for Western U.S. Agricultural Trade Association. So this is specifically for businesses in the agriculture industry. So the Fund Match Program is funded by the USDA, and it's a very generous program. Next, I want to share we have some upcoming training workshops.
Could you please explain a little further of WUSATA program?
Yeah, so WUSATA program, I'm not very familiar with the details of the program. It's managed by WUSATA, and typically when we work with businesses in the agriculture industry, we refer them to that organization. But it's a grant program, and a lot of times it works with when you attend one of the trade shows organized by WUSATA, and they can help pay for either flight or hotel and subsidize some of your trade show registration fee. So yeah, it's a very generous program. So this audience, if you can type your email in chat to me, I will send you an email and to include the website that includes the information and also contact person at WUSATA that can provide the details. So the upcoming export training workshops, we have one on March 22nd. That one will be similar to this one. And that one is we put together with Washington State Department of Commerce. On June 7th, I'm giving a webinar on export pricing strategy. That one is in collaboration with the Washington State Department of Agriculture. So that is the information I provided, and here's our web address and contact information. All right, and so back to you, Cindy.
All right, I'm off of mute. Thank you very much, Ellie.
Sure.
I don't have a lot to add. I'm certainly not an export specialist myself, but I do want to say that from my opportunities in the past working with Ellie, I think anybody in Jefferson County who has export aspirations will be in very good hands with Ellie. She's amazing. She's patient and methodical and can really act to demystify a lot of the complexities of exporting. So there's actual tangible steps to take to move forward if this is of interest to small businesses here. So I guess I would just like to open it up for further questions so we can all chat amongst ourselves and be addressing things that are important to the businesses that are attending today. Pete, you mentioned that you might want to export and like be more specific about what you're exporting and export in bulk rather than responding to one-off orders. Is that true?
Yeah, that's taking a couple of our key products and focusing on whether there is a market out there to then build the capacity both in the manufacturing side here locally on those items versus having, you know, the thousands of different pieces people can look through. There are key ones we know we can market. that was one particular item that Sharon had worked on, and that came from a stem that a German magazine had done a feature article on that one particular product that we made and how it was being made. So it kind of, I think it kind of looked like there was a market for it, but maybe not enough. So I think there's some research and homework that can be done on the various products we offer.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But again, there's some little more homework, and I would assume a lot of this is, I guess, needs to be driven by the GDP, which is, we all know we're 225% below the numbers to really get our budgets back in order. So that means manufacturing really has to step up to the plate, and we have to find resources to help them get there so they can produce the product. Because again, with the technology changes and the lack of labor, we're really kind of caught in between a couple of hard rocks right now.
Okay. And Pete, could you be a little more specific about your product? What?
Well, we have a number of products
related to architecture.
Yeah, we have a number of product lines. Some are in the architectural world, some are in the streetscape world, whether it's our public garbage cans, our benches that we manufacture, to our marine hardware line. And the marine hardware line is literally, there's thousands of pieces we can choose from, because we've collected the tooling to be able to make all of these different parts. So it's a matter of then just identifying which ones we want to try to target.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to continue working with you, Pete, if you like. And we can engage. We can have a discussion and come up with some research questions that would be most relevant at this moment, and then have our research team run some research to pull some current data on what is the situation right now and what is the demand out there. And together we can identify what are the products you want to prioritize in terms of exporting.
Yeah, and I can take some of that and get some background from our current inquiry list. And some of those, I know I even have an email today from Germany on certain product we make. Now, they're, again, they are the end user, so they're not really looking for that demand, but it gives me an idea that that product is missing where they are.
Yeah.
And that gives me an opportunity to say, oh, should we look at this on the broader picture in that region? Is there a demand enough for us to send product there?
Yeah, certainly. And I heard you said earlier, you sell to so many countries, but sounds like they are more like directly to the users. And so another area to look at, and I think you mentioned it as well, is potentially find a distributor in that market. So you sell to them and they can sell retail to the consumers directly. That way can potentially help drive down the freight cost and also increase the volume of sales. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Ellie, is that, I'm sorry, then is that what you do, is you would help Pete find the distributors through information resources and market intelligence?
So we can, typically what we do is first to identify the right way to enter the market. And like you can find distributors or you can find a sales agent in country. And you can also set up local manufacturing. There are a few different ways, and we would typically engage a discussion with the small business to identify what would be the best way. And then the SBDC, we do not have direct contact or directory or things like that overseas. But we collaborate with other agencies and the U.S. Commercial Service. So this is a department under the U.S. Department of Commerce. They have what they call the matchmaking service, where what they can do is that after we have that discussion, we identify, say, we want to find a distributor in Germany. And then what the small business owner can do, or what Pete can do, is to work with the U.S. Commercial Service, and they will go through their database and identify 3 to 5 potential distributors and connect Pete with them. That's a service for a fee. That is conducted by U.S. commercial officer, and those are people that are stationed in U.S. embassy in that foreign country. So that's typically for a fee, but again, that fee can also potentially qualify for that STEP grant, and the small business can get reimbursed.
So technically, you're saying the U.S. Department of Commerce group will do the vetting on those suppliers or distributors.
Yeah, they can actually find you 3 to 5 distributors that they have vetted and they believe would be a good fit for your business, and they can connect you with them, and they can even schedule meetings. So they have a package. Basically, you select what kind of service you want them to include, and it will be at a different pricing point. But again, that price you pay them can potentially be reimbursed through the STEP grant.
Pete, Naushad here. The way it works is, hello?
Yes.
The way it works is U.S. Commerce Department, federal level, they have commercial officers that travel to different regions or different countries and develop these relationships. But they have counterparts in the U.S. embassies, the commercial officers, they call it. And they vet the local companies, and they are in touch with them. And once you tell them these are the products, then they will know which of the local companies will be interested or potentially interested.
Okay. I think I'm aware through them.
Ellie, I have a question about some of the folks that we work with that are doing value-added food and beverage products. It seems like periodically SBDC has a trade mission opportunity, and I'm just wondering, especially for those in agriculture or value adding, what opportunities like that might come up and how people can tap into them.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a very timely question, Cindy. So right now we are organizing a trade mission to Taipei and Hong Kong. And this one is specifically for the specialty drink sector. So it would be for the wineries, cideries, breweries, and distilleries in Washington State. It's very highly targeted. And the trade mission, we're taking these small businesses to Hong Kong and Taipei in April, in mid-April. And in Taipei and in Hong Kong, in each market, we arranged one-on-one business meetings for these small business owners to meet with the local distributors and importers. And in some cases, it's the owners of retail chain, local retail chain, and they would import products directly. So we set up one-on-one meetings for business owners to meet with these buyers, and also arrange market visits for them to see in the local, say, specialty drink stores, how the products are displayed and what are the products there. They can see what US products there. What's the pricing point? And so, yeah, this one is upcoming and it's April. It's highly targeted. And after this one, next year, we do plan to put together another trade mission But in terms of the target market and sector, that is not yet determined. But pretty much SBDC put together one each year. We hope to, during the pandemic, it's paused. We did it virtually. But from now on, hopefully we can put together one, at least one each year.
Is there a fee for that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we pay for the one-on-one meeting arrangement, venue, and the group transportation. The small business owners pay for their own airfare and the hotel and the sample shipping. However, we collaborate with the Department of Commerce. And so for the participants to use STEP grant to get reimbursed for the airfare and the sample shipping. So basically the participants are paying the hotels themselves, but they get reimbursed for airfare and sample shipping, and the SBDC pays the rest of it.
Okay, thank you.
Ellie, can you say anything more about people with service products or intellectual property or an educational product and how that might differ from a tangible product in terms of exporting?
Yeah, certainly. And so for service export, we want businesses to think of it as a product. It's put it as a package. As a product package, and pay special attention to the IP protection. So as I mentioned, whatever IP registration you have in the US, it's not protected overseas in other countries. So typically the discussion about IP protection would be one advising session. We will look into detail into the market, first market selection, which market you want to enter, and the second, how much risk is involved in terms of IP in that market, and pricing it right. So export pricing is an interesting topic, especially when it involves services. The US product and services are typically viewed favorably by foreign buyers, and we don't want exporters to leave money on the table. And also for service exports, one area of particular consideration is whether or not it will involve traveling to that foreign country to provide the service. And if that's the case, it will involve some immigration regulations in that foreign country, immigration and the labor law issues. And for that topic, typically we will engage in an initial discussion, and then we'll connect the business owner with a lawyer that is qualified to practice in that market.
So what is the services, Cindy? What kind of services?
I worked with a company a while ago that had some software that they were targeting customers that ran nonprofits, and they wanted to sell it across the border into Canada. And I think they were also establishing a second headquarters overseas. So they had some questions about that. I know some consultants often ask if they can, what it's like if they put a package of their services together, like what the complication is to work in other countries. I haven't worked with an education product yet, but it just seems like with technology and how easy it is to form a company based on membership and to sell something across the border, it just seems to be more common now. And I just worry about people running afoul, by thinking that what they do in the US is going to fly if they start to sell, in Europe or other places.
So can the consultants sell their services in other markets or foreign markets? And is that covered through SBDC?
So Noshad, we can provide advising and discussion, but typically it will involve other professionals, especially in the market. Let me give you an example. One small business owner I worked with, she put together an educational program. And so it's a service export. And one of her big customer is education in the educational industry in Canada. So she would train contractors and send contractors to Canada 3 days at a time, sometimes 1 week, to provide training. And she has been doing that for 5 years. But one thing she missed is that she didn't consider the tax issues. So she did consult her CPA in the US, and her CPA in the US told her that your business is exempt from tax in Canada. You're fine, you don't need to do anything. So she didn't do anything. 5 years later, the tax agency in Canada sent her a bill. That's a huge fine. It's in thousands of dollars of fine. And it turns out that she is indeed exempt, but she still needs to file the tax with the Canadian Revenue Agency to prove that she's exempt from paying that tax, but she failed to do that. And her US-based CPA actually doesn't have the qualification to advise her on the Canadian tax law. So what she should have done is to consult a tax professional, a licensed one in Canada on that issue, and filed her tax and requested exempt status. So she still doesn't pay tax, but she needs to file. So in this situation, if she comes to the SBDC, ask that tax question, again, SBDC advisors are not tax professionals or lawyers. We are not licensed to provide advice on that, but we can provide the information and connect the small business with the, either if we know a tax licensed professional in Canada, or if not, we would connect the business owner with the US Commercial Service. So those are the commercial officers based in the US Embassy in Canada. And they have typically have a referral list. They can provide the information. I hope I didn't scare anybody, but in reality, they saw the areas that exporters do need to pay attention to. One is export control, and one is if you send people to another country to provide the service, what's the requirement in terms of immigration law in that country, and the tax issues.
Miko, have you ever thought about exporting anything?
I have, yeah. I've thought about exporting wool and yarn spun here locally. And I know we kind of talked about it earlier about market research abroad, and market research, you know, I feel like it's when I think about what stops someone from exporting or even thinking that they're ready for it, is like, well, I have no idea if there's a demand for it or like what that would even look like. And if you do any market research in another country, is it even something I can understand? So Ellie, did you say that you had a research team that could help with that? Because I feel like that would be like a really helpful tool. I mean, market research is even hard enough to do here alone. So.
Yeah, definitely. Nicole, I'm so glad you brought that up. And because market research, this is an area that SBDC can really provide value, and it's at no cost. Mm-hmm. So how it works is that at SBDC, we have an in-house market research team. They are college student interns. So they are not full-time SBDC staff. They go to college and they work for us probably 10 hours, 15 hours a week. And the SBDC has purchased access to some database. So typically a small business owner want to access certain database, they will have to pay for that information. But SBDC has provided access to the student interns, and we train the interns for them to put together the market research report. So how it works typically, for example, Miko, if you come to me and work as my client and we engage in a discussion about your product and say the current inquiry you have received on your website, we can take a look at your Google Analytics to see where the visitors come from. And also based on your own understanding of the industry, where you think are the markets that have the best potential. And then together, I know some easy to access market research tools. Together, we can look at those tools. We can further narrow down that initial list to say 3 markets. And then we can come up together, we can come up with research questions that are most relevant for your product. That would be a combination of you and I working together, because I know what our market research team can do, what is realistic to ask, and you know about your industry and your product. So together we can put together typically 3 to 5 research questions that's customized to your needs. And then we submit that information to the market research team. And what they do, they will dig into the data and they will come up with answers to those questions. So it's not like they will dump a bunch of data to you and you go figure it out yourself. It's not like that. They actually put together a market research report. And in that report, they will provide a summary to directly answer those questions that you asked, and then provide the data points to support that answer. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive report, and it's one of the best secret that many small business owners don't know.
Very cool. Thank you.
Well, thanks, anyone. Are there any burning last questions before we wind up our call?
No burning questions. I just want to thank you all. Ellie, I do look forward to getting in touch and continuing the conversation. We'll do that here shortly. And I believe I've got all your contact information. So, and Sharon, look forward to hopefully seeing you sometime in the office, or maybe I'll drag you out here for a tour.
There we go. Or maybe I'll be walking around town.
You betcha, run into somebody somewhere. But thank you all, and you have a great afternoon. I need to jump off now, so
All
thank
right.
you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll
All right.
expect a big container of cleats to be leaving sometime soon.
Yeah,
here.
cleat benches. It only takes 4 for a container full. There we go.
Yeah, they're
Thanks.
not the lightest weight thing, but
Yeah.
cool.
Bye now.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, Ellie. Thank you, Sharon.